think it's a humble. I think it's a bit of humbleness as well to know that you're not an expert in Bitcoin. Like it just takes a long, long time to learn it. So it's
Yeah,
and I understand it, and you never stop learning as well. So, um,
yeah.
but once you master a field, you realize how much time and commitment you need to put on to get to that a certain level, and then with Bitcoin, you feel like you're never there, which is not a bad thing. Keeps you.
No, exactly. And the thing is, though, like what I keep thinking back to is like how, even a talk like this going, how do you add value to this? Because there's so much to know and there's so many very knowledgeable people in Bitcoin. What are you really going to add to that? So always kind of keep that in check going, yeah, yeah, like it, uh, and I don't even know the audience then of like, who listens to these things? Like I'm going to give a talk in a few weeks' time in the college.
Yeah.
I am absolutely super excited to be doing it because it just feels like, I don't know, like it maybe a new audience, like bringing new people in and saying, here's this, and it's not what you thought it was. It's got a lot more nuance and depth and meaning, and I'm so excited about that. Part of it, yeah. But my thing is, I know energy, I know mechanical engineering, I know that side of it. I'm very comfortable with that. And I can guarantee to you that Bitcoin is, entrenched in that. Like it's not just anything fly by night. It's got real depth and meaning behind it. And I
Yeah.
know that the rest of it, like the cryptography and all that stuff, I'm going a little bit of trust in all of that. I don't absolutely know it inside out, but the energy side, the proof of work, I'm going, that even concept, proof of work, like it's such an energy thing. Like and it goes with everything. Like the guitar here is just purely, it was the cleanest wall I could find. Normally I have when I'm doing lectures online, I have just my office. I have a picture of my office, so no matter where I am, I'm in my office. Um, but that's there. That's like proof of stake to me. I don't actually really know how to play the guitar. So I just have
I
a,
have one back here somewhere too.
I, yeah. So it's like I have one, but it produces nothing of value when I'm around it. So
Yeah.
it's my shit coin.
I, I think everyone has that kind of a imposter syndrome at times with Bitcoin because there's so many knowledgeable people out there as well. But again, that comes with a bit of humbleness. Again, it's a nascent technology, like it's a nascent idea. Like I know, again, you can go back to probably the 50s, 60s, 70s when people started thinking about, digital cash and stuff like this and how to make and maybe a native internet money, back a couple of decades ago, but it is still very new to everyone. So, but the other side of it too, like if you've got that specialism in energy, and like that's an area that I like. Again, I've studied the mechanics of and the mechanism of proof of work from probably a technology standpoint, but not from an energy standpoint. So that's my shortcoming. So I'm here to learn today as well from you, Niall. And I find it fascinating. And there's so many different industries, and sides of this, and like it's a bigger ecosystem than people realize.
Yeah,
When you
yeah,
look at all the components, like from wallets, mining, exchanges, even there's a whole array of industries that are popping up in this, and I'm sure obviously the financial side, the banking side, and stuff like that is going to pop up, collateralized loans and stuff. So yeah, it's just fascinating overall. Like, but what a time to be alive and involved in this, like, and right at the start. Like,
oh
I
yeah,
think people will be calling us very lucky in decades to come for sure.
yeah. I think that's part of it too. That there's no one way to like figure this out. You have to go down so many different avenues to go and piece them all together and get confidence in them all. And yeah, I think that's why Bitcoin isn't something that's just going to be like a clicking instant thing with people. It's a building up of knowledge, but it's also credibility as well. It's I hope I can add credibility to Bitcoin in Ireland, and I suppose the whole remit of Bitcoin Network Ireland is to kind of, I don't know, like just to say to people, take this seriously, please, because it's the future. There's a future here that we're going to be missing out on, like you miss out on the internet if we don't embrace it. And even I think about in economic terms, I can think of the north and south, and like even the division there of how like the North kind of stagnated, like it was a big part of the industry in Ireland. And then it stagnated. And why did it stagnate? It stagnated because it just didn't keep going with technology. And then the South kind of embraced it and went, yeah, let's go with this. And now I feel as if the South is kind of stepping back, going, no, we're very cautious, risk averse. We can't do these new things. I'm going, God, you're going to miss out. We're really going to miss out. I mean this for my kids and stuff. Going, that's the future that they will have and want to be part of. And yeah, if we don't get credible voices in, high up, and I know it's a cyberpunk beginning, but really, I think that kind of engineering is a stepping stone towards like a higher, higher kind of establishment of it being used. The engineers got it, I think, because of the proof of work. I think that's maybe why, you do see a dominating effect of engineers in it at the moment. They really see that, and I think that's a big part of it becoming mainstream. But
I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. It's just that thing because you're tied to the laws of physics, the laws of nature, and that Bitcoin is intersected with that. It's so important, and like especially like the renewable energy sector across Ireland, like north and south. You see like the number of wind turbines locally here, like with amount of farmers. Either they're putting the turbines up, obviously from a financial incentive, but just being able to kind of get more knowledge into those people's hands around what Bitcoin mining is and how can we actually structure something that's going to introduce Bitcoin mining and with the excess energy produced from these turbines effectively, because it's staggering, isn't it? It's quite a lot of wasted energy involved there, isn't it? Well,
yeah,
up to 40% potentially in places.
Yeah, I think even that name waste is tricky too, because it doesn't. It's just energy. It doesn't change from being energy. It's just it's a potential energy that you're not going to develop and utilize. So a lot of wind farms will have the potential to develop this energy, but not actually do it because there's nowhere for it to go. Electricity has this thing of it's really hard to store it. It needs to be moving constantly. And it's then that kind of question of, well, what do you do with the surplus, that energy that you could produce but can't because there's nowhere to go? And the Bitcoin mining fits perfectly into that. Now you could get into the kind of complexity of how we're developing our renewables is I suppose.
I think we do get into a bit of that, Niall, even just now, the conversation around that, because again, I'm fascinated by it because I know there's probably a political side to the renewable energy as well, but there's obviously merit in it. But yeah, maybe do you want to give a bit of background on your background and then your Bitcoin background now? And then I think we get into that and get into where you see Bitcoin mining in Ireland and how it progresses. But yeah, just give a small background about yourself first of all, and whatever you want to cover, and then
my own background is I did a PhD in ground and air source heat pumps in 2010. Finished that 2010. Was lecturing then in Athlone, in Tufts and Athlone since 2008. Before that, I was kind of doing undergraduate stuff. Did an Erasmus year in Holland, which was great in power generation. Kind of gave me that broad power understanding. Before that, then I worked with a renewable energy company. I kind of went a roundabout way through college. I did 2 years of a certificate. I don't a 2-year cert. It was the thing that was done. And then you went on and did a diploma, which is an ordinary degree now, and then an honours degree. So I kind of took time between them all. But I worked with a renewable energy company, small renewable energy company, installing solar panels and heat pumps, stuff like that. But it was that kind of interest that drove me towards power and power generation. And then after that, I ended up going to Holland, doing the power generation degree, and then did the PhD. And the PhD was in renewable energy, but thermal side of things. But I suppose thermal is the basics of all energy. So I feel good having that grounding. But electricity is really where we are now in energy. That's the energy that people want to be using. even for thermal, it ends up, it's going in that direction, electrification of everything. So that's my background. It's kind of like, bit of work in the background in it. I used to do some kind of some private work, in energy, but really I started a family in 2011. Then 10 years have flown by then with kids, 4 kids. But I'm kind of the thing that happened then is I was teaching all of these things in renewable energy, and I felt as if I didn't understand where they were fitting in Ireland. Now I know they do from a perspective of a security of supply in Ireland. We just don't have the energy means. I know with peat and with a bit of oil and gas, but generally we just don't have resources like that. So I always found the renewables were great from that perspective to have another string to our bow in terms of energy, not all reliance on one or imported energies. But when Bitcoin came along for me, it was like this beautiful moment of going, geez, these two really work well together. I mean, they work so perfectly together, hand in hand, ideal. And it's that kind of thing that I'm going, actually, that's why I go, like, I really studied it then, because I went, this thing could really, like, forget about just the value of Bitcoin. It was like, Bitcoin could actually really help renewable energies, and particularly renewable energies in Ireland. But that brings you down loads of different rabbit holes then of the value of all the things you're doing, because, if you want to go into the, well, I suppose my Bitcoin journey then was always, it was actually, if you want to go that journey, I suppose my money journey it started around 2008, where I saw the craziness that was going on here and kind of avoided it because I was doing the PhD, but I ended up kind of going, gold is the way to go. Just not that I was investing in it, but I was going, it just doesn't make sense, the whole money. I didn't understand money, to be quite honest, then. I just knew that it didn't feel right the way it was just becoming so dominant in Ireland. But after that, then I started to see, the cracks of everything, and then felt as if it was still going to crack again, if you know what I mean. Like there was going to be more craziness of 2008 like effects, but it never happened. And the reason it didn't happen, because in hindsight, they put the printer press on the proof of stake, the ultimate proof of stake is, and where they issue pre-mines, but in this case they constantly pre-mine. They're mining all the time this new flow of money into the system, and it just doesn't allow it to break and to correct itself. So it's only in hindsight I've seen all of that, but I started to intertwine that with Bitcoin and go, this has some value. I don't know why, but it just does. And I think 2015 I kind of really got into it, then back out of it again. And then a friend of mine in 2020 chatting to him going, listen, really get back into the skin. You have a perfect background for it. And then from then on, it was just like, yeah, absolutely gung ho into it.
Was it actually from your mechanical engineering perspective that really helped you understand Bitcoin, which then led you to understand what was happening within the monetary system? Would that have been the kind of journey process, as opposed from understand what money is first, then realize what Bitcoin is? So it was purely from the mechanical engineering kind of concept and construct.
Yeah, it was that proof of work. It was going like, you can't produce something from nothing. And it was going, there you go. Okay, money's just been produced from nothing. And you're trusting everyone. And I learned recently that I don't know if it's a bit academic, but the origin of the word credit is a Latin for trust, and it's basically trust. You're trusting the people to produce this credit. And I think that trust is breaking down. There are some institutions that you could give trust to, but over time it feels as if it's very human cyclical to people to take advantage of the trust. And I think we're at that point in it now where everyone is really figuring out that you can't trust the system to work. And I don't want to make it sound bad here, but going like make it. It just needs to be more fair, a fairer system. And I think there's a lot of unfairness that's baked into the credit system we have at the moment. And I think that was the real trick going, yeah, proof of work and the lack of it in our money production right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you go back to like I often talk about the competition for money years ago, like obviously centuries or thousands of years ago, and gold won outright for its properties that it had, but again, no one could create that. That was kind of that neutral money, and you have to use energy to get that out of the ground, and it's also energy then each time you pass it on to someone. Somebody's either doing a service or providing a good for you to. So all that is proof of work the whole way along that chain. But just it's interesting, and I wonder how much. Obviously, if you read some of Satoshi's workings, he based it on. I can't remember who it was uh, Adam Back that did the original proof of work.
I think it was Adam Back,
yeah. But he obviously researched that, but researched gold as well, and that was the tide. Like that was the genius part behind Bitcoin. Like a lot of people talk about the blockchain, but like the blockchain is one component out of many. One of my least favorite components is the timestamp. Basically, like it's necessary, and you can see how people like have rode off the back coattails of kind of blockchain and Bitcoin, but the proof of work is what really makes it tick, and it's what makes it sustainable over time. It's got a competitive industry, and it's so powerful. And as you said, I think you mentioned at the beginning there, it's involved in nearly all parts of life. Like you can't get like usually there's flaws if you try and create something out of nothing. Like there's flaws everywhere. Like you can like build muscle by exercising, and that's kind of a proof of work in a way. But if you try and cheat your way through it by using an over extension of performance enhancing drugs, then that'll have an impact somewhere in the system, like usually organs and things like that. Like, and they, I know people listening. Some people might dabble in that stuff, and you think you can manage it, but over the long term, like there's going to be disruptions.
Yeah.
Like proof of work is just it's on everything. Like the amount of work that you put in your research, the amount of work that you put in and everything, like it holds true. The whole proof of work and what you put in is what you get out of it. So yeah, it's one of the most fascinating pieces that I've seen in Bitcoin, and one of the most misunderstood pieces. Like I think that's going on at the minute in the US, where people are equating all cryptos to the same as Bitcoin, and the one thing that they're missing is that whole proof of work. Like you can't create money out of nothing. You can't just print digits, allocate them to someone. Like you have to get it. You have to get that distribution going somehow, and the way that Satoshi solved that was using energy.
And everyone has a fair crack at it. Everyone has the same access to it.
Yeah.
That funny. That is the one that it took me a while to get that, and it took me like months and months of actually not. I didn't take the time to sit down and think through it. Just what you said there, Chris. You need proof of work. Anything within nature, anything is natural. That creates something of value requires work, but it's something that it just took me a long time to really for that to click in my head. And then once it did, that's when that's when I really got Bitcoin. And then, as you say, what's happening now with the altcoins, what's happening with Trump in America, I just don't think they get it, or maybe they do and they're just trying to play a game. But it's a very key component. It's a key concept that will take a lot of people, I think, a lot of time to figure out. But again, that comes back to the mechanical engineering mind as well. And as you said beforehand, there's a lot of individuals within Bitcoin coming from a similar background to where you come from. I say now, generally, how would you do you see a big tie and a big place for Bitcoin, within the actual kind of renewable sector, especially renewables within Ireland, but again globally as well? Is it a major component that you're seeing in the future that will provide a key role in renewables, and how renewables sort of develop and drive forward?
That's a tricky one, because it should. There's no reason why it shouldn't. But the hurdles are still there. There's still a lot of companies that I would talk to, and again, I'd have a lot of people I'd know in renewable energy industry, and they love the idea of it. And the numbers speak well to them, but just there's a nervousness around it, a nervousness around the regulatory regime, how that would be implemented, but also then just around their reputation, that would they get a bad name from being involved in this. So the numbers are definitely there to work out. They're 100% something, without a shadow of a doubt that's going to be a thing. But whether it actually gets implemented, I don't know. But again, that's why we want Bitcoin Network Ireland to be able to kind of showcase this in a way that it's not, look, there's lots of people that have lots of different ideas about Bitcoin and what it will do for them, and personally, but it's also just a benign technology, a benign idea that can be utilized by anyone. From my perspective, it's saying it has this utility that would help renewable energy companies make them more profitable, so that they can then reinvest in more renewable energies or whatever they want to do with their the profits they make from this. That's not a bad thing. We want this growth in renewable energy. This will help it. Let's go at it then.
What's the kind of general sense on the general feeling at the moment around renewable energy in general in Ireland or even globally? So, like, some people I see is that it's just not efficient. They can't store energy very well. Say, talk about wind farming, for example, and then people, a lot of countries are moving towards nuclear. And to me, again, I'm not an expert in this field, but a lot of people who I would trust probably in the Bitcoin space would say like nuclear is powerful, like it's sustainable. It's like, is that something that countries like Ireland consider? Do they have the capacity?
I tell you, I'm torn in all this because from the politics perspective, the renewables have been pushed by the government for the last number of years, possibly beyond what the electorate have asked them to do. So I think there's a bit of fatigue there on the renewable energy side of things. A recent poll, I think, was done by one of the newspapers that showed like the majority of people don't want to be subsidizing renewables. They don't want to be paying for it. Whether they are or aren't doing that, that's beside the point. The sentiment has changed, and I think you have to respect that. You have to respect people's wishes. We do have very expensive electricity in Ireland for lots of different reasons, and the renewables are part of that reason. Not the only, though. Like we've not really kept on top of the infrastructure requirements for energy in Ireland. So that is a factor. I also see that there's in my mind, there's a natural balance of the amount of renewables you can have on the grid, and that's one that's a kind of like self-sustaining. I don't know. I couldn't say exactly what that number is, but if you push to what the government wanted, say 80% renewables on the grid, you're going to have to push the boat out in terms of subsidizing that. There's no way you can get all of that on without having to make huge allowances for it, by overdoing the amount of renewables on the grid to be able to get that capacity and supply. So someone's going to have to pay for that. I'm saying you help alleviate that by having mining to go with it, and take a little bit of the burden off the taxpayer for it, or just the ratepayer, the payer of electricity for that. But the nuclear side of things, I don't get people who would have carbon on their, at the forefront of their minds as an issue, have them not be kind of pro-nuclear. That doesn't make any sense, because it just doesn't have the carbon footprint, that you would be against. I think the against is kind of historical. It's just that, that where the government of Ireland tried to force the issue in the 70s, and there's a lot of people there was a lot of backlash to that. And I still think there's a bit of sentiment there about that. But I'd say younger people are probably more open to the idea.
What was it back in the 70s? Niall, like, I don't have the background in that. Was it I guess at Chernobyl and like fears of safety and things like that. Is that kind of
I think so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it was like the reality is, well, you needed a very big nuclear plant to be installed, and Ireland at the time was going to be just massive, too big really. But right now, there's small modular reactors that are being developed. I don't even think that we need those. I think if we're doing it, you put in one regular site, which would be potentially 20-25% of the electricity supply of Ireland, at the whole island, which is a lot to be putting in one basket. That's why that's one of the things you normally don't do. But we're going to have interconnectors with the UK, with France, few more. We've 1.5 gigawatts of interconnectors going right now between the UK, and we'll have more coming online between Ireland and France in the near future. So there's plenty of outlets for it in both directions. So I wouldn't worry about that. But where you put it, and I think again everyone could be on board with getting it done and getting nuclear onto the island of Ireland. But where do you put it, and who's going to be wanting it? I don't know. I think there's a case to be made for it to be done. I do like it. It needs. There's lots of criteria for where it's placed. It was the one in Wexford was there because of it's just the geological location allowed for. You want igneous rock. Maybe Antrim in the north would be another place you could place it. Connemara out my side, out west here, could be another place you could place it. More remote location out west of Ireland, so it mightn't be as hard to get done. I'm not against it. I'm just kind of like, will people want it and will people accept it? And you have to bring people along with this rather than force them. But maybe times will change and people will get more on board with it. So yeah, I have no issue with it. But I also think the renewables have to be, questioned as well. You can't just have a blind ideology to these things without some checks and balances.
And now, when you talk about renewables, there's obviously a spectrum of that as well. Is there any specific area that Ireland should thrive in or should take advantage of? So obviously there's hydro, there's solar, there's wind farming. Like, there's probably more than that, but yeah, talk to us about that. What do you think is in Ireland's favour there, and what the reasons are?
For doing it or for not doing it, or
for selecting maybe a certain type of what would be an advantage for Ireland? Like, do they have a good strong point in wind farming and hydro and solar?
Yeah,
not solar, I would say, because of the amount of sunlight that we get, especially not where I'm from anyway. But
do you know what? Solar is getting there. Solar in Ireland is taking off. And it's because just the technology is getting cheaper and the efficiency is getting to a point where it'll still work regardless. It's not the best in Ireland, but it still works. Where do we go? I don't know. I feel as if that we can, only go so far with them, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. The one thing about fossil fuels is all of that money that we're spending on it, which we're spending a lot to maintain the standard of living we have. It's still going abroad. That money is leaving the shores of Ireland. And, I think it should be part of the equation. You say how much money is being consumed and how much money is staying within the economy locally. And I think with renewables, they tend to stay local. So you have to balance that with the fact that you're spending more on electricity. This is where it gets complicated because you're saying, okay, it's more expensive, but the money stays local. You have jobs, local jobs. And, if you wanted to go down the nuclear route, the reality is we wouldn't have the expertise in Ireland to be able to pull off something like that. So it would need to be a UK, an English company or a French company that would come in and completely do it from scratch. It would involve no Irish people at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And where, that's cheap electric. And even there's question marks about how cheap it is because it all needs to be underwritten. It's the insurance element of nuclear that's mind-blowingly large because if anything goes wrong, someone has to pay for it, and the government underwrites it. But there's a cost to that, there is a cost. So I don't know, but outside of that, yeah, it's the money doesn't stay locally. So I don't know. That needs to be teased out. And again, ideology should not be the main criteria for that decision. It should be pragmatic and saying, what is the best for the country. And if we have a transition that we want to do, we need to do it carefully, not in one major go. And I'm telling you, as an engineer, things cannot change that quickly from a technological perspective on the grid. Just we cannot. The expectations are far too great.
And I guess bringing back, looking around at Bitcoin mining and energy specifically, relating those two together, are people within the industry locally here, do they be looking out at the likes of what's happening in Texas, what they're doing with mining rigs and, with electricity grid balancing and things like that? And I suppose just because for the people listening, how does Bitcoin mining actually provide a solution to like surplus energy and that kind of context? How do you see that? And how would you explain that to someone, Niall?
Yeah, I suppose like when you have a wind, so the traditional way of setting up a grid is that you have a demand for electricity and you supply it, and you perfectly match those two. So you have a power station that ramps up and down with that demand, and they go in tandem. They're connected perfectly. But with renewables, they're what's called non-synchronous, so they don't synchronize, but they also are variable, so they don't match the load that's there. So you end up with a mismatch. And what you have then is times where you have oversupply and times when you have undersupply. When you have an undersupply, you need to have things that are there waiting to come on. Backup generators, or either backup generation, just typical generation, or what's called peaker plants. Peaker plants are just like big, powerful engines that just come on for a few hours a day to fill that void. They're expensive, they're expensive to put in just to have as a backup. And it's one of the things that's thrown at renewables is, it's very expensive to put in the renewables, but you also have to have the backup as well. That's costing money. So that aside, if there's an oversupply of renewables, you then have to curtail the wind. So turn it off, turn the wind turbine off. And it's kind of like, and it's all recorded. And you can see that in Ireland, say 10 years ago, it's called what's called dispatch down. So it's when the grid operator, the transmission operator says, turn off your power station, turn off your wind farm. There's too much on it. And they're able to record that. It was about 6% 10 years ago. Not even less than that again. Was dispatched down, was turned off. And the turning off is dispatched down, but it's curtailment and what's called constraints. So curtailment is when there's just too much power on the grid. Constraints is when the grid actually isn't technically able to take your electricity. So you might have a local power line that just cannot take your power. It's too much flow going through it. So between those two, 6%, but it's grown to nearly 10% now. And if you think of the projections about what the government are looking for, 80% renewables by 2030, it's not going to happen, but that's what they want. You'd be looking at least 20% dispatch down by that point. So think of 20% of the electricity that potentially generated can't be because of this issue. So mining is therefore just an ideal partner to say, well, if you're going to dispatch down, don't, we will take that electricity off you. However you want to set up the economics of this. And they'll pay you €50 per megawatt hour for that energy. And you could mine, the latest miners might be giving you €100 or €150 per megawatt hour. So, there's a margin to be made off that. The margins aren't great from that perspective when you think of like if you think of the electricity that does make it onto the grid, it tends to be 80, 90, 100 euro per megawatt hour. So it's tight margins to make a profit on mining when it's running normally, but it's still possible. But that's the use case for it. You have this growing amount of, it's called surplus electricity that's going to be there, not utilized, not generated. So you have this wind passing through these blades and not turning them. But they could be, and they could be producing power.
Sorry, now I'm going to ask two questions here. Go ahead first.
No, I'll just to finish that, and the problem is that they get payments for this. So it depends on, there's a few different schemes that are out there. The older schemes wouldn't pay you for what's the curtailment, they pay you for the constraints. But when you're turning off, you get paid anyway by the government. You get topped up the amount.
Okay.
And the difficulty there is that the incentive to do something with that then is, it's gone. It's instant. Well, say for example, the government gives you 100 euros. Say it's in around 100 euros per megawatt hour. And if you're going to make, say, 120 of mining, is 20 really worth it? The extra amount, you go, And then what if Bitcoin drops a little? Say if the hash rate goes up, then you're only going to make 105 or less than. Then you're going it's too risky from that perspective because the incentives aren't there. So hence why you need to talk to government to be able to say to them, we have this solution that doesn't lean on you and doesn't lean on the ratepayer to pay for this. It's a no-brainer. Just get rid of the blinkers and talk to the adults in the room about this. There's a technology that you can use. But
it's very common. But
I'll add another layer to this. That the problem, though, and a big one that we have is that it's illegal to have a private line in Ireland. And so if you wanted to shift that electricity from your wind farm across the field in your wind farm to the mining, 20 meters to your mining facility, it's illegal.
Oh.
So you have to put that excess electricity onto the grid and back into your mining. And the thing is, the very second you do that, you have transmission costs. You have local network costs and transmission costs. You have levies, you have all that. And it probably adds in and around, and I've been very broad here, in and around 60 euro per megawatt hour onto that. So instantly cuts all of your profits by having to do that. Now, I know the government are talking, and there's a European directive that says that they must allow for private lines, and they've opened, there's guidelines in the making, but it's very slow. And I get the impression they're under there's no fire under them to get this done. But if they get that done, then it instantly makes mining way more appealing. And not just mining, you're talking about hydrogen production, you're talking about batteries, everything that potentially takes that excess electricity has to go through the grid and pay those charges right now, where they shouldn't have to, because it's, like I said, it could be 5 meters of a run from the wind farm to the mining unit. And that's the beauty of it. The mining unit is there on the farm with you.
And do we know anyone's doing this in Ireland, or is there a prime example of, I know Al mentioned Texas, but anywhere, this part of the world, like UK, Europe, that has a setup that is a playbook that Ireland could borrow from, or is there anyone in Ireland in this moment?
We have an example of a farm up the north. I don't know if you ever heard of the one. It got a good advertisement. A good guy, Mark Morton, was involved in that. Really good. Very, very forward thinking in the way he set that up. But it was done off anaerobic digestion, and that anaerobic digester produces. So anaerobic digestion is taking waste stock, waste farm material, and just allowing it to produce gas. Introducing bacteria that will allow for it to produce methane, and that methane then is burned in an engine, and that engine produces work, and that work is then producing electricity that runs the miners. And they set this up. And the thing is, though, under normal circumstances, that anaerobic digester would be doing that job, producing methane, producing power, and that power would go onto the grid. But that farm was grid isolated, so it was a stranded energy. So mining was absolutely perfect for that. And it feels as if it was a very unique situation for that application. So, that made it perfect, made it ideal as a solution. But it doesn't feel like it's a playbook then you can go on and redo throughout Ireland, because these anaerobic digesters, there was a lot of money, I think, given as a grant to develop that anaerobic digester, but they didn't have the plan to actually get it reconnected, have a line that would allow that electricity to go further on. That was my impression with that. And even in the south, then anaerobic digestion has been given lots of green light to go, and grants have been given. But that methane that's going to be produced is going to get injected into the natural gas grid, so it's going to be put into there. So it's not going to be producing electricity. And I get the feeling they're getting more money per megawatt hour, for the methane than the wood from the mining. So I think the reality is they get more for it. So the playbook is really in Ireland, really only with the and this is all in the back of the fact we have very expensive electricity. And if the mining fits that niche of cheap, zero cost curtailed energy, plus then potentially some mining where the day ahead rate is quite low and you're going to get more money from mining as a kind of top up. But generally the curtailment is the one that you're looking to utilize with mining. Yeah.
It's interesting to me. It's all like it's a learning curve. Obviously, Bitcoin's a learning curve. This, even just listening to what you're saying there, it's stuff that I wasn't aware of. But I can, you get a good understanding of why, things don't progress as quickly as maybe the likes of ourselves maybe want them to. You've got the regulation in place that just takes time. But as you say, when there's subsidies being handed out as well for certain other kind of angles to use and utilize the energy, it's tricky, but it's a long-term game as well with Bitcoin, especially. I think it's just being kind of aware, and it's the education piece as well, just making more and more people either within government, within the energy industry aware of what's happening. And Niall, you're doing a talk, I think, in a couple of weeks from the recording of this episode. That's within is it TUS? It's in Athlone University, is that correct?
In Athlone, yeah.
How are you finding? Do you have many discussions, conversations, with students or other academics within the sector, within the university, around this concept of Bitcoin and mining? How is it being received currently within the kind of university space?
Yeah, I suppose I would have been quite reluctant to air my kind of love for Bitcoin or involvement in any way with it. But slowly but surely, again, through Bitcoin Network Ireland, and the lads that are there are fantastic. They have that really clear vision of what we need to do and how we're going to do it. And I kind of bought into all of that and just said, yeah, let's go with it. And then I've been opening up that conversation in the university slowly but surely. And it's been quite good because, I suppose universities do have, there's a thirst for knowledge in university, and it can't be really quenched, so what I found is the vast majority of people are fascinated by this. And the dean of engineering was the one who said to me to do this talk, to get locals to know what we're doing, like the cutting edge of engineering. And it's appealing. Bitcoin just has that appeal. People want to know more about it. And I've just been in the really lucky position of knowing two parts of it, knowing Bitcoin and knowing renewable energy, and to put on a talk. So that's what I'm doing. And it's it's up on the website. If you go to tuss.ie, the events page, it's up there. Register if you want to attend. I'm going to try and live stream it. So if you register, I'll send out a link to anyone that's on that register. But yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to it. Like I said, I think if we can get locals to come and get involved and be kind of like in, maybe not the main. And I like Bitcoiners, but I think I want new people to talk to new people about this and really kind of show like the renewable side of it and the energy side. And a lot of things I'm very unsure of in life. There's a lot. I'm really sure about Bitcoin, and I'm really confident of its future. So, yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, I would say that would have been impossible to do 5 years ago or more.
Oh yeah,
that shows how far it's come in this country. And I've mentioned this a few times in this podcast, but I'm always astounded by the progress that's here in pockets within Ireland. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, but all these small, sessions that people are doing all over the country are making a huge difference. And like, everyone has probably had a couple of touch points of Bitcoin, and a lot of people's stories are like, I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a way to extract money out of people. I didn't trust it. And then, maybe the second time, third time, you say this hasn't gone away. And then it builds confidence with people. And now it's 16 years here. Like, there's activity going all around the country. There's Bitcoiners all over this country. Not enough, in my opinion, but like, it's huge strides. And as I say, this couldn't have happened, 2020, before 2020, I would say. Like, you probably wouldn't have had that chance to be on that stage and give that spotlight and give that talk to people. So, yeah, amazing progress.
And in fairness, I wouldn't have had the understanding of it. And again, it's taken a few things to come to align for me, and I think I've been both. I think I've been quite lucky to have all of those things align. That I had to kind of like, do you know what? I would have been trying to invest in stock markets and stuff like that, and I just hadn't a clue. To be honest, I really hadn't a clue, and I was going like, you need so much time to be able to work out what companies are worthwhile investing in, all that. I just went, I have no idea. And then just Bitcoin came along and went, this is exactly what I want. I don't want to have to worry about whether it's going to be corrupted in a year's time, or it's got that value. And okay, things can go wrong. It's still nascent. 16 years is a long time, but it's still new. But the people that I listen to, the people that are involved in it, I've really massive confidence in them. It's a young, vibrant people that are into Bitcoin, and it's not going away. It's just not. Like, it's an idea that it's time.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Has anyone done, like, any country, well, any politician, any economics, anyone who's trying to understand economics and improve the economy of Ireland, like, numbers talk to them, like figures talk to them. Has anyone done the maths on what Bitcoin mining and that renewable energy setup could be worth to Ireland? Like, because to me, like, people like dollars, pounds, euros, they talk to people, they talk to governments, and sometimes even on their face, it's a difficult challenge. But if you can show the figures and the metrics, and if you have an estimation of it, like, it goes a long way. You're not just saying this is something that's nice and it's good to do and it's good for the environment, or it might help people and it might bring this or bring that. You're saying, here's the cold hard facts. Like, this is what it's going to do in general to the economy.
Yeah, I just looking at that 20% of curtailment that's going to go on potentially by 2030, and if we just say that as a value, that's about $500 million, per year in lost revenue, or somebody's paying for that. Like, if you think of, like, that's at €50 per megawatt hour. That's not 100. So it's $1 billion if it's €100 per megawatt hour that the taxpayer / the ratepayer paying over the renewable energy companies for this curtailed energy. I'd be going, we can have that value accrued from mining, you know. Okay, not all of it. You're not going to catch all of that curtailed energy because it tends to happen in spikes. So you're not going to have all these mining equipment just waiting there for all of it. But you're going to grab a good chunk of it if you really wanted to. Politically, no, we've been trying. We've been tipping away trying to get politicians / political parties to talk to us, and I think that's a slow process, and we're happy to take our time with it and not be kind of overly pushy on it. I'd have a slight interest in into that party that they've I've put a few motions to their Congress that's going to be coming up in May, about mining and allowing it, or just being okay with it, not kind of like pushing it, just saying it should be given the same credence as any other technology that's in the power generation industry, and also that Bitcoin should be given the same rights and freedoms that other investments / other savings technologies have as well. So I'm hopeful they can kind of be one part of the push politically to change things. But I'd like it across the spectrum, the political spectrum. I definitely don't want to have this as like a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing or anything. I just want it to be a thing that everyone can be comfortable with. It's for everyone.
And that's why it's so important as well now, because there's going to be countries that do this, and if you're left behind, you're going to fall behind eventually. So it's so important to get these messages out early. And again, even if the politicians don't get it now, at least they're not starting in 5 years' time saying this is the first time we're going to start exploring this. Like Bitcoin Network Ireland, getting that message across the last few years will start resonating over time. And once you see the first mover doing it and it's working out, at least they've got a head start on thinking about this. So that's why it's so important to get those messages in front of people.
I'd nearly put this. I'm not sure if you're betting types or if you want to, but I would wager in 5 years' time, a good chunk of the energy industry will be denominated in Bitcoin.
Globally,
I really think globally, I really do think it's gonna click with the engineers, like I said, and then it's going to become the unit of account for energy. And after that, I mean, energy is pretty much everything. So that's a domino.
I think it's inevitable as well. Same thing.
But I want Ireland to be there and thereabouts as well in 5 years' time, which I don't know. Like I hope we can change hearts and minds about it all, because we will get left behind, like you said, Chris. Yeah, we will. We will be left behind if we don't.
Yeah, such an important topic. Is there anything for the audience that you would think that's a common misconception about energy and Bitcoin mining? Like, a lot of people don't spend time thinking about this, but when they see the headlines and it's like, I think there was a headline years ago in New York Times or something like this where, there was a kind of grim black and white photo of a Bitcoin mining farm, and it was kind of smoggy and things like this. And
I remember that.
Yeah, they portrayed it as this kind of dirty industry.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of one that sticks out for me. But not a lot of people will see it. They will just see the headlines and say Bitcoin mining, energy, oil, ocean. Like, is there any kind of misconceptions that you would say to listeners that might not be overly familiar with mining or thought about it before that you can?
You can't. There's loads of ways you can combat that, but to be honest, most people don't really get convinced by words. They need to kind of see it themselves, and kind of like they need to, feel it. So like I don't think there's any convincing in that. It's just basically saying to people, go research this for yourselves, figure out what work is in energy terms, and then figure out what proof of work is and why it's central to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, and why none of the rest of them want to go down that road, because it's the driver for decentralization and for a lot of these coins that are out there. And do you know what? I wish there was nothing else, to be honest. I wish it was just Bitcoin and that's it. Like that, I have no time for any of the rest of it, because it's a lot of scams and affinity scams, and people have been taken advantage of, and then people end up feeling burnt by this. I had an example of a neighbor of my mum's who's old asked me about Bitcoin, and I spoke to him about it at length. And then he rang me back a few months later, and said, "Yeah, I bought a few of those cheaper coins." Like, so I don't think, and I think I told him to go Bitcoin only, and hopefully he did. But there's only so much you can say. There's only so much you can tell people. People will make their own minds up, and the energy side of things, I wouldn't get too bogged down. Like even when I talk about renewable energy, it's not going to be a silver bullet for any kind of issues we will have with, oversupplying renewables. I think there's probably going to be a plateau in the amount of energy that's consumed by mining. I think it'll plateau the amount, and then it'll be everyone fighting for their part of the hash rate within that.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard that before, but that's interesting.
But I'm not only saying that out loud, but I'm not absolutely convinced in that either. But I think I think that sweet spot for the price of mining is if you can anything above 15 cent per megawatt, 150 euro per megawatt hour is going to end up pushing more miners onto the hash rate. You know what I mean? You're going to if the price of it goes up too high, you're going to get way more mining rigs on, and that just brings down the revenue again. I think it'll just find a plateau there.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone then that said, because this headline came out as well, and it was already proven wrong, but I think it was around 2016 or 2017, I remember seeing it, like Bitcoin's going to boil ocean by 2022, I think it was.
It was going to
what
use
would you
all
say
the
to someone
energy.
maybe a bit naive and headline?
Yeah, it was going to use all the energy. Yeah, it was. They extrapolated some trend. I mean, it's just ludicrous. Like, they've seen some trend in the amount of energy that was been consumed by mining, and they said, well, if we extrapolate this trend to 2020, it'll be using all of the energy nonsense.
5 countries or something silly. Yeah,
was every. But I think it's back to this thing of like, energy is hugely abstract. So it's very hard to really get your head around it. Like, you can observe energy, but not directly. You have to kind of like by proxy understand energy. That's the same with Bitcoin. Like, there's nothing absolutely tangible you could look at and say that's Bitcoin. There's nothing. So you need to have an ability to understand abstract concepts. And I don't know if many people are able to do that. So, and I think a lot of people then end up just trusting. And I'm doing it in cryptography. I don't fully understand it. So I'm kind of trusting in that regard. I need to do more research into it. But I think for most people, they end up just trusting it. And once it becomes common and okay and accepted, then everyone kind of gets into it. I think that's where we'll reach a tipping point with Bitcoin, is that once enough people are showing that they understand it and have confidence in it, then a lot of people will come with them.
Yeah. Really good point. Yeah. Cool. Well, I suppose that we've covered quite a lot there, actually. I don't want to keep you too long either, Niall, because it's getting late. I'm sure you have other things to do. But is there anything else, Chris, you want to ask, Niall, or is there anything else you want to kind of cover? Or
no, probably just a comment again, or a statement more than anything. Just fascinating. Like, this is an area that I need to focus on. Again, I know the kind of technical side of proof of work, but not the energy and mining side that well. And it's an area that I don't need to spend the time getting into. So I appreciate the insights that you gave on this. And yeah, I think you've pointed out it's a hugely important topic in Ireland. And I think if we get it right, I think it's an opportunity to get ahead. And economic prosperity is what everyone wants. I think there was actually something showing as well that I think there's some charts and trends that show that the countries that use more energy are generally more prosperous as well. So which one comes
Yeah.
first, maybe the prosperous and the energy, but I think it's energy first, and then
Chris, you're describing one of my charts that I'll show at the talk. It's the energy and prosperity, but I throw in freedom into that. Freedom actually is the one that you need before. Freedom and energy, will lead to technological development and prosperity. That's kind of like the two go hand in hand: freedom and energy.
Yeah, fascinating topic.
Yeah, it is. It is. And if you look at that chart, you see these countries that are rich, and they also have lots of energy consumption, but it's more to do with freedom, and that's a whole other topic, that Bitcoin kind of touches on as well, which the cyberpunks, were the ones that really go for that, and I think that's possibly drifted a little, and I put my hand up and say, as an engineer, I haven't had that as the number one priority, but I do think it has its place. It's a freedom tech that people, can't lose sight of that people need to be able to use it.
Yeah, it all goes hand in hand. I always feel, like controlling nation, government, even company. Like you see people being micromanaged, even in teams and things like that. They don't thrive. Like people thrive. Innovation happens under freedom. Like it always does, and control stifles innovation, and these all go hand in hand. Freedom, energy, prosperity. It'll all happen. Like the innovation and energy will happen because of freedom, and that'll bring prosperity over time. So yeah, definitely, you can see the interlinking between all of them. So yeah. Alan, anything you have for Niall?
It was fascinating. Really enjoyed the conversation and listening to all the points you made. Niall, it's just that neutral. We need neutral money with free markets, and the energy sector has a massive part to play in this whole concept and construct of what Bitcoin is, I think, globally. So it's just really fascinating. And as you say, Chris, I need to do a lot more research into the energy side of things and in relation to Bitcoin. But it's really great to have experts like yourself, Niall, here to be able to talk to and connect with in this respect. And hopefully we'll get this out before your talk. We'll obviously drop the links below the episode as well. But is there anywhere else, Niall? Like, is there anywhere for people to find you online? Where's the best place to go to follow you? Where's the best?
Yeah, I suppose Twitter, Niall J. Burke at Niall J. Burke, or LinkedIn. I'd be on there as well. LinkedIn is the more professional me.
Yeah.
No, that's the two places you can. If you wanted to connect from a academic perspective, it's niall.burke@tuss.ie.
Cool. Good stuff. We'll put all these links below the episode as well.
But should we end with a guitar playing? Should we?
Will I get my guitar and we'll play a tune? Yeah.
We'll do.
I can play on one string. I can go up and down a string.
Do you know Lovely Horse?
Will we subject people to that? It's a good tune, a good song. But yeah, we'll get you back on, and by that point in time, I'll have brushed up the guitar playing. You do the same, and Chris, what are you going to play?
I'm not going to try anything musical. It's not my forte at all.
Right.
I'll listen.
But great stuff, Niall. No, we'll wrap it up there.
Fair play to you as well. I'm loving your shows as well. They're really, really good. And you're having some quality content.
Oh, thank you. It's getting the message out and trying to get more education out to people and awareness. So yeah, fingers crossed. We'll keep at it, keep going. But good stuff. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks, Niall. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Niall.
All right. See you guys.